untuk kita semua. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are on your best condition today. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Valdi, and it's my pleasure to be your host for today's Kenalan. As a representative of Trisakti Landscape Student Association, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you taking a time of your busy schedules to join us today. First of all, let us praise and thank God for His blessing given to all of us so that we can gather here in a good health. Before we start this event, I would like to thank to our Honorable Mrs. Dr. Melati Ferianita Fahrul MS as the Dean Faculty of Landscape Architecture and Environmental Technology, Universitas Trisakti, Mr. Marcelinus Nirwan Luru, STMSI, as the third Vice Dean Faculty of Landscape Architecture and Environmental Technology, Mrs. Insinyur Hiniati Wijaya, MSI, as the head of Universitas Trisakti Landscape Architecture Department, Mr. Eko Adistiawan, STMT, as the Secretary of Universitas Trisakti Landscape Architecture Department, our Honorable Professor from Universitas Trisakti Landscape Architecture Department, our today's special speakers, Zoya Matin from School of Planning and Architecture Bhopal, and Rehanda Hanifariza Harlisana from Trisakti University. And lastly, to Kenalan crew and our dear friends that participate in today's Kenalan. Before we continue to the next session, we will enter the first photo session. So, please turn on your cameras and smile. The photo session will be guided by the crew.
All right, thank you, Valdi. I will take the pictures in one slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you, Valdi.
Eva. Today is the last day of Kenalan event. Kenalan is an abbreviation of Kepoin Anak Lanskap, which means getting to know with landscape architecture students around the world. So, at this event, we will discuss everything and anything related to landscape architecture study or profession. Before we start next session, let us pray for the event to go well today. Let the pray begin. Pray enough. So, we are now entering the next session, who will be guided by a moderator. To the moderator, time and screen is yours.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you, Valdi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Nadira Nusadrina, and you can call me Dira. I'm a student from Landscape Architecture Universitas Trisakti, and it's my pleasure to be the moderator for today's Kenalan. And now, with our today's topic, landscape architecture and the student organization at the university, without further ado, allow us to invite our first of today's special speakers, Zoya Matin from School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal. Hello, Zoya.
Hello, hi everyone.
How are you doing these days, Zoya?
I'm doing good.
Well, I'm fine too. In fact, I'm so excited for today's Kenalan event. How about you?
So excited. I'm very much excited to know what kind of current situation of landscape is there in your country, and I would like to share what we go through and what kind of projects we have done. So I'm looking for a very interactive session.
Oh, it looks very excited. How are your current activity these days in this current pandemic situation?
I'm sorry, what?
How's your current activities these days in your country in this current pandemic situation?
It is much better, much more controlled than it was like previous months if I compare. But again, there's this new variant, so restrictions are again getting back. So it is kind of like a mixed situation here. Some of the areas are open, but there are curfews in some areas. So
Oh, well, I've been very busy with campus assignment and organization activities these days. So, Zoya, I believe you are very excited and thrilled for what you have for today. So, Zoya, shall we get started?
yeah, sure. I'll just share my screen.
Okay, time and screens is yours.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Is the presentation, and I am a landscape architect. My name is Zoya Madeen, and I recently graduated from School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal. Um, Today, I'll just showcase one of my project that I did in second semester in my second year of college, as well as just talk about how landscape architecture and pandemic are interrelated and how the situation has changed. So, starting with the very basic, I would just like to say for the past decades, whenever we think of designing or planning, we have more focused on hazards and disaster planning rather than focused on infectious diseases like airborne diseases that we have faced in the past year. Um, so the current pandemic situation brings us back to question the importance for designing and research on more chronic diseases and how it can be implemented in design. It is said that major disasters have been catalyst for major changes in architecture. Like in the previous decades, tuberculosis inspired the modernism era in architecture, so we never know, like we are going to be the future for the landscape architecture and what might come out of it. So parks, plazas, all the outdoor urban assets are like no longer being seen as like superficial or just green areas, but are being now recognized how essential they are. So they're like the pandemic has accelerated as a priority the need for more accessible outdoor spaces and how to include them in our built environment agenda. Most of the cities here in India, what they have done is all the public vacant land, they're trying to convert it into linear parks, even the smallest space, they're trying to transform it into a green recreational areas. And more of the architects and landscape architects are designing spaces that are more flexible and more open so that if such tragedy again strikes us, we can better utilize those spaces. So landscape architecture is adopted for social distancing, and some very small solutions like access to external spaces for well-being and exercise are designed with social distancing. Smaller solutions like wider pathways or one-way pathways instead of having a two-way, these small design solutions can just help us in tackling the situation we are in. So yeah, so this is how I feel that landscape architecture can be turned into a great opportunity to tackle this problem that we have faced. Like as it said, moments of crisis can also be seen as moment for change. So yeah, so that is all I have regarding the landscape architecture and how it is affected by a pandemic. Um, if we move forward, this is again the project that I'm going to showcase is of sacred groves. In India, there has always been a lot of cultural significance and association of people with the trees from a very long time. India is very diverse in religion and beliefs, So a lot of people have different beliefs, and they tie to a lot of tangible and intangible aspects, and Sacred Groove is one of them. So this project was done by me in my second semester, in my second year of college. And it was during the pandemic period, so I thought this is the best project to showcase, so that I can tell you, like, if you can't visit this site, what, how, and from where you can get all the informations from. As I said, Sacred Groove is like a groove of tree that people have cultural or religious associations with, and in India, if you go back till Indus Valley civilization, like this sketch that you can see here is a people tree is engraved on stone that was found from Indus Valley civilization. So it dates way back. There are rock art paintings of people worshipping trees. There's a tree mosque. There's Sachi Stupa that has an engravement of people worshipping trees. So all this shows the how back it dates to the significance, the cultural significance of trees. And on this map of India, you can see the distribution of sacred groves. And here on this map of India, you can see the the tribes that are there in India. So if you overlay these two maps, you will come to realize that the sacred groves are usually more in the places where there is tribal population in India. So that comes down to the conclusion that most of the sacred groves that are still intact are looked after by the tribal people, because they still believe, they still have those beliefs with the place, and they still have that association with the place. The place that I'm going to discuss with you is in Madhya Pradesh, that is in the central part of India. There are around 170 groups, sacred groups, that have been documented in this state. And there are a lot of gods that they worship in these groups, and some of the trees are also worshipped here, mainly flame of the forest, banyan, people, sal trees. These are the trees that they worship. As you can see, that the group doesn't need to be like a very big area. These are some examples that I have shown here. In a barren land, as you can see this tree here. So this tree, compared to the surrounding area, becomes an identity. Similarly, these some stones that have some religious value to the people. They have these incense sticks that give this aura, these intangible aspects as well. Similarly, this is again one more tree that has plinth to it, so it gives like an importance to that area. So these small things were documented while going through all these um, grooves that we studied. And to follow any project or complete any task that is there, or how to start a project. So this is the methodology that was followed to study this project, and that can be incorporated in any of the projects that you work on. So usually when we start with a project on a smaller scale, if you want to resolve a problem on a smaller scale, it's usually better to look at it on a bigger scale, so that the problem can be solved throughout thoroughly. So the first step to start any project is to start with the background studies. And the background studies could be on a larger scale. You can take any scale on a city level or a watershed level, or whatever, howsoever you want to divide your study into a larger and a smaller area, and go through the topography, hydrology, geology, climate study. Because I was studying a cultural landscape site, I had to look into the landscape character and the association with tribal community. And coming down to the site, I had to look at the visual analysis, vegetation, activity mapping, religious beliefs that the people had with this land. And after doing the background study, the next step could be data collection. That could be literature study, case studies, the similar sites that are there and already being studied. You'll get a lot of help from them. Then comes the primary data collection, that is going on site and documenting. That is the most important one. You go and talk to the people around, take as many photos as you can, make as many sketches, as many observations as you can, map everything that you see on site. So after doing the background and the data collection, the third step comes down to inferences and conclusion. Like whatever data that you have collected, you analyze that data. The assessment of authenticity and significance, what is needed, what is not needed. So all these things need to be done. And after analyzing and coming to a conclusion for the problem that you were looking at, you give your design proposals or guidelines or whatever. So this is just a methodology that can be taken into account to solve any work task that has been given to you. Moving forward, I'll just talk about this project. As I said, my site was located in the center part of India, that is Madhya Pradesh, and it was near Bhopal, my site, because it was pandemic and I couldn't go to any other area to document or visit. So I chose a site that was very near to my hometown. The district is called Raisen. The site where my site is called Raisen. It is about 465 to 470 meters above sea level. It has mostly forest areas, like green areas. The district falls under the tropical zone, and these are some of the ranges that are found in the district and some of the villages that are there, their population and their tribal community and their association. So my site basically had Bone tribe that was dominant in this area. Looking at the map of the district, the yellow part here shows the agricultural land. The green part here is mostly the forested area. The red is the built up, blue is water, and the brown is the uncultivable land. So as you can see, more than 70% of the land is green, like agricultural land or reserved forest on my side. There are two major water bodies, as you can see. This is one Betwa river that flows. That is a tributary to Ganga River, and Ganga again has a lot of significance, cultural significance, and religious significance here in India, because people worship it, and there are a lot of religious rituals associated to it. And on the southern side, there's Narmada River, as you can see. So these are the two main rivers that can be found on my district. And these pinpoint areas, as you can see, were the sacred groves on the district that were documented. So that is just a brief of the map. Going down to the elevation, the district had basically three major physiographic regions. First was the Malwa Plateau, that is in the northern area. Then in the center was Vindhyachal and its hills. And on the northern side of the site, it's Narmada River, and there are plains of the Narmada River. So this was the major elevation of the district. As you can see, there are no documented sacred groves on the hilly regions due to higher elevation ranges, and documented groves are mainly on the plateau regions and the plains of the Narmada River. Going down to this slope, as you can see, because there are hills in the center part of the region, these are moderately sloping areas, and almost all of the sacred grooves that were identified are located on a level to nearly or very gently sloping terrain for easy accessibility. Talking about surface form map, again, there were three types that were found: old floodplains near the river, plateau regions, and hills and ridges. And location of sacred groves is mostly on leveled areas, whether it is on the ridges, plains, or plateaus. It was on a leveled areas. Talking about geology, there were three types of soil that were identified. First was alluvium, upper Vindhyan rock, and Deccan trap. These were the three soils that were identified in my district. Talking about the soil depth, all the sacred grooves that were identified, these areas had really good soil depth. Like it was these were very moderately well drained, neutral to alkaline soils. So because of this, the vegetation in these areas was really good. Because the vegetation was really good and the so the erosion susceptibility was very less in these areas. So the sacred groves had less of erosion susceptibility because the roots of the trees kept the soil from erosion. Talking about hydrology in this area, as I said, there were two major rivers. First is the Betwa River here, and the second is the Narbada River. So the whole district is divided in two water subsheds. One for the Narbada, the other one is for Betwa. The average rainfall in this area is around 1100 annually, and it was observed that all the sacred groves that were identified were located near the vicinity of water in form of streams, springs, or river. Talking about vegetation in this area, there were 4 types of vegetations that were identified. Tropical dry deciduous teak forest, deciduous mixed forest, deciduous scrub, and grasslands. The total forest area in this district is about 32% of the total geographical area. And 62% of that area falls under reserve forest and 35% as protected area. So this area mainly had the occupation of this district also is agriculture only. So there are a lot of green patches all over, like it is mostly green, this whole district. These are some of the species of mixed deciduous forest and dry teak forest that are usually found in this district that are mentioned here. Talking about activities happening in this site, you can see the Betwa River here and the Narbada River here, and these red spots are the major tourist attractions. This district has 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. One is the Bhimbetka Rock Shelter and the other one is Sachi. So there is a lot of tourist influx that happens, and it is all on one side only. There are a lot of places like Udaigiri caves. There is archaeological sites around this. There are waterfalls. There's a wildlife sanctuary. There are different forts. So all these sites have created a corridor of activities that are happening. And these purple dots, as you can see, are the sacred groves that have been identified. And these sacred groves are somehow maintained by some priests that live there or the tribal community, depending on the area they are in. Sometimes it's managed by both of them. And these grooves, the sacred grooves, they symbolize trees as gods and they worship it. So they have a lot of significance, cultural and religious significance to these areas. So looking at the all these maps that were done and the studies were done on a larger scale to understand what sacred groves were and how many sacred groves were around there and in which areas did they happen to be in. On a bigger scale, a proposal was proposed of blue-green corridor along the Betwa River. As you can see, this Betwa River, and if you look at the Google images, there are it is all surrounded by agricultural land throughout, and this Betwa River had a lot of activities happening along its corridor. So a whole corridor was connected by giving a buffer of 50 meters on either side of the river, and the tributaries were given a buffer of almost 30 meters to safeguard the water and save it from pollution and other factors, and create a corridor. And this is just a managed river corridor section of showing how the water can be preserved by giving in riverine wetland species and having smaller smaller water channels along the main river to promote ecotourism there and not go into the main water and pollute it. So this was kind of a section that was proposed for the river corridor, with some of the activities that could be harbored along these blue-green corridors. that were related to programs, hydrology, ecology, and education. That could be broad walks, event spaces, terraces, reforestation, bank stabilization by having planting some trees to stop the erosion, culture and history. That could be there could be spaces that talk about the tribal people that live along these places to educate the people about it. So all this was just a vision board of what activities can be incorporated along the blue-green corridor. So on a larger scale, this was studied, and then we had to zoom down to one site which we had to study in detail. So as you can see, these all 15 of the sacred groves were identified in the district, and one of them was chosen for me. Like I had to choose one of them to go and study like in depth about that area. So I chose this sacred grove called Jhiri Betwa Udagam. Like as I said, this Betwa river flows along this area, and this sacred grove was considered to be the origin of this Betwa river, and it had a lot of association of people with this, and it was surrounded by tribal communities. And as I said, this project was done during pandemic, and it was quite near to Bhopal, so that is how I chose this site so that I could visit it and document it better. So I chose this site. Um, there were a lot of aspects that made this groove sacred. There were a lot of tangible aspects to the physical location, like where it was located, to intangible aspects, like people were coming here for a lot of rituals. They had spiritual beliefs. They believed in some of superstitions, and like folklores and myths are related to this area. So all these intangible aspects, not only that, religious aspects, traditions, socio-cultural aspects, all these headings were making this place very sacred. These are some of the images of the site, as you can see. And these are the sacred places on the site that are considered to be sacred. As I said, the name of the groove is Jhiri Betwa Udagam. That means Jhiri means actually a water stream, and this place is considered to be the origin of Betwa River. It does not, this place does not only have just one stream of water originating. There were three of them that were there. So the whole village in which it is located is called Jhiri because of this. The selected region is in a microshed or micro watershed of sub-basin of Betwa River, and it falls under a protected reserved forest area. This groove had been demolished by the forest department twice, but because the locals have religious and cultural association with this land, now they have been given this piece of land. And but the government has constructed a community kind of a hall here on the entrance of the groove. The groove is managed by a Hindu priest, and is also managed by the tribal community that lives around it. There are a lot of Hindu gods that are worshipped here, and some of the trees are also considered very sacred. As you can see in these images, these are some of the trees that are considered sacred, like Saja, People, Maua. Like these are some of the local names of the trees that are considered sacred, as well as there is a myth and a folklore behind this area that talks about the tribal community, and some of the tribal heroes that have passed away, they have their graves here. So people come here and worship them as well. So this place has this kind of an association with it. If I talk about the site surroundings, this is the site, and the site is mainly surrounded by agricultural land. And that agricultural land belonged to the tribal community, but due to the shift in the lifestyle and occupation, these forest lands are now converted into croplands. and the site has neighboring ecotourism spots. There is a water reservoir, as you can see here, and there is a filtration pump here as well for this reservoir. The water get filtered and it's passed on to the nearby settlements. There is an industrial town near in the vicinity, and the site is surrounded by a lot of temples, as you can see here, and these temples are more than 1,000 years old. So that is like the basic surrounding of this site. As I said, there's a reservoir here, water reservoir, which filters the water. But the wastewater that is there on the wastewater is pumped back, and that wastewater is actually pumped. And if you zoom into the Sacred Grove site, the water goes along, and this is the origin of Betwa River here. It is said it goes and mixes with the wastewater. So where the river is starting, that is only the source of pollution here. So that is one of the biggest problem that was there in the Grove. As you can, this is the main road from which you enter. As all of this is government's like reserved forest. On the right hand side, you can see this area to be a teak forest, a totally dry teak forest area that the government only planted a lot of teak trees here. But on the right hand side, this is the Grove area. This is the community hall that is there. There's one small temple present in the vicinity. The graves that I was telling you about, the tribal heroes that are worshipped, is here, and all this area is considered to be sacred along here. These are again some physical features of the site, as you can see. If you cut in a section along the main road here, on the right hand side you'll see teak forest, and on the left hand side you will see mixed forest type here, because there's a lot of variety and diversity of trees that are found here. These were some of the trees that were identified in the Grove, and their invasive nature, their medicinal use, the sacredness associated to it. Some of them were poisonous, some of them were native to the area. So all these things were identified on identified. Similarly, some climbers, shrubs, and ground covers were identified on the site. Um, and a quadrant study was done for some of the spots inside the Grove and outside the site as well. So it was observed, as I said, there were a lot of variety of trees that you could see inside the Grove because it was still protected. And on the other side, either it was just agricultural lands or it was a teak forest. So the teak dominated more than 90% of the trees in that area. And here you could see a lot of varieties of trees. Not only the variety of trees in this just small area, you could find a lot of mm, plants that were used to cure some diseases, and because a lot of tribal people lived along, they still used these remedies to take care of their headaches, backaches, and all that. So this small patch of land still had ethobotanical uses as well. And a lot, and this is some of the fauna that is associated with the site. Talking about the site, um, because of the cultural association with this land, people came here to celebrate a lot of festivals as well. And the festivals depended on the phases of moon. So a lot of festivals are marked here that are celebrated, and these colored festivals are the ones that are celebrated by the tribal people. And this is just the influx of people coming in for this. And for all these festivals, there are special trees that are associated with each one of them that they worship, and they offer some offering for their festivals. And people come here, like the tribal people, they come to this area on on marriage, whenever there's a marriage in the village or there's a childbirth, just to gain blessings. And as it is considered the origin of Betwa River, people come in and take bath in this water also to wash away their sins. And there are a lot of these associations. I don't know what to call it, like myths, folklores, or superstitions associated with this piece of land. Um, as you can see, this was the activity mapping that was marked in here. Because this area is under reserved forest and it has like very good views, there's a water body and all that, so people are coming here. As you can see, that people are coming here for picnics, they're parking their cars inside. There's a tractor that is just moving across and crushing the trees inside it. So there's a lot of vehicular movement happening inside the site as well. And these were the most active areas on site that are marked, and some of the user groups that are seen on a daily basis on this site. After that, after going through all of that study on this area, some issues were identified. Issues related to vegetation, issues related to the water, and issues related to the user behavior. In vegetation, there is like burning of grasses, there's grazing. As you can see, agricultural land is just near the groove. There's no proper buffer. There are invasion of exotic weeds are there. There are some of the trees that are suffering from some diseases and no one's taking care of it. um, Deadwood collection, biomass gathering, all these things could be noticed for the vegetation. Related to water, as I said, there's a filtration pump that gives out wastewater, which mixes with the underground water that is water sprouting of Betwa River. So there's that issue. There's no buffer or a riparian buffer along the water body. Anthropogenic activities are taking place, like people are washing their clothes or taking a bath, or because a lot of tourists are coming for their rituals and beliefs, and they're polluting the water quality here. And talking about the user behavior, as you can see, it's trying to the whole groove is getting concretized, and because there is vehicular movement, these roads are just breaking down. um, there is no proper fencing, as you can see, and because of the anthropogenic disturbances that is affecting the ecology of the sacred groups. So yeah, these were some of the issues that were identified on site, and I'm going to show you this video here. As you can see, the water sprouting from the source that is considered to be the origin of Betwa River, that is so clean because it's underground water and it's very clean coming out of it. And here you can see this clean water is getting mixed with the wastewater that is getting pumped from the filtration pump. So, and it is further getting downstream, it's going downstream. So the source of contamination and pollution is starting from the beginning itself. So these were some of the issues that were identified. And coming down to the conservation of this and how to conserve this area, the conservation strategy that was adopted was revival of natural processes, and the management technique was zoning the areas. So the entrance or was given public access because this was the most active area as well. So this was given access with vegetative fencing along the road. Then the core of the site, which had a lot of species that need to be conserved, was left, crucial and undisturbed for the revival of natural processes, so that the nature takes its course without any human intervention. And to be and one proposal was to add a buffer along this core for about 30 meters of buffer to create an intermediate area with the rows of trees and between agricultural field and this core of the sacred grove. And this could be done with vegetative fencing of euphorbia and shrubs like which livestock doesn't eat, so that the livestock also doesn't enter this restricted area. And introduction of bioswales along the water that is getting pumped, and riparian buffer, and planting species for phytoremediation, like for remediation, species can be planted that would clean up the water. So these were some of the strategies that were introduced, and this is just a proposed section of the water, how it should be and what it is right now. There should be like proper edging and grasses and shrubs, and then shorter trees and trees. So how the section should be, and a proposed vegetation distribution palette along this water bodies and agricultural land, with hedges and fields, and with the forest that is inside, that is considered sacred, of different vertical stratification, how it should be. So this was just a proposal given, and once this is done, how it is going to if it is conserved, how it is going to in turn help in ecosystem services and create like an ecological resilience. So that was the whole project about working from a larger scale, looking at a broader picture, giving a solution for that and narrowing it down to a smaller scale, and then working on it to resolve the problem. So that is all about the project that is there.
Wow, what an impressive presentation by you, Zoya. Everything looks very exciting. May I know what the most difficult challenge while you are working on on a project? Especially in India, you mentioned that there are different traditions, cultures, religions, and beliefs. Can you tell us, because in Indonesia we have different traditions and culture, and also different beliefs and different level of challenge. How did you overcome those challenges while you're doing your project?
I think it is. I think once you start a project, because there might be projects if you are not aware of the religion or their beliefs. So I think that the most important part is to do research and understand their association with it and respect their traditions as well. Because then only you can come up with a solution, like a mutual solution that every party is going to agree to. So that is very important, having a background study of why and why are they believing in what they're believing in, and respecting that. So yeah, that was like one of the biggest issue that I had to face and understand that their association and why it is there with that space and the water and everything.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see. So from the presentations, I believe everyone here has some question to ask. But before we entering the Q&A sessions, we will continue to the second speakers, Rehanda Hanif Faridza from Universitas Trisakti. Hello, Rehanda.
Hello, Nadira.
How's your
Thank you.
days?
Fine. It's good as usual.
Okay.
Not so
Very
much
generous.
special. Yeah,
Okay. So, Rehanda, shall we get started?
of course.
Time screen is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Best wishes to all of us. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rehanda Hanifaridza Harwisana, or you can call me Ice, as in Ice Cube. I'm a student. I'm a landscape architect student currently in Universitas Trisakti, located in West Jakarta, which is the capital of Indonesia. So let me get started. Well, in advance, I would like to say thank you to Zoya Martin for the wonderful presentation. And I would like to apologize in advance because compared to your presentation, which is the Sacred Grooves project, compared to mine is the scale isn't big as yours. So I would like to apologize in advance, and let me get started from the first one. Okay, so we are currently in Jakarta Landscape Architecture Trisakti University, and this is an event provided by Student Association of Landscape Architect in Trisakti University. So, being in a tropical country, Indonesia does not have spring, summer, autumn, or winter. Instead, just two seasons, rainy or dry, both of which are relative. While there is significant regional variation in most of the country, the dry season is on April to October, while the wet season is November to March. However, global warming has made the season less predictable. For example, now, just 5 minutes ago, it is raining heavy, but next day, it may be just dry, blazing sun. So right now, it is very unpredictable, the season. And with over 17,000 island, diverse language, vast and diverse culture, and vast of natural resources, our current and main challenge in Indonesia is to conserve and to maintain all of the things. Okay. So I would like to talk about important course in landscape architecture study in my college, which is Trisakti University. First is botanical taxonomy. So in this course, we study how plants grow, what organs are there, types of plants according to their ecology, which is useful when we are doing conservation or selecting plan of choice in designing or planning a site. And the second one is nirmana. So in this course, we study about arrangement of visual elements such as points, lines, colors, space, and textures into a harmonious whole. And beside of that, we also study spatial composition, which will be useful when we are doing design concepts to form a good space transformation and many more. And third one is studio, landscape design, and planning. This is one of the major course. There are 3 levels. First, for studio, second, and then third. It varies around the scales and the function of the site itself. So we carry out an inventory of data to synthesize on the site, and also in this course we have to calculate the need for the budget plan of the BOQ. And then the fourth one is study tour. In this course, not only we study indoors or in class, sitting in front of the computer screen, we also studied the basic science of building. We also study outdoors, visiting the site itself, and we observe the urban or the natural environment by research on field studies. And we usually go to Bali or Singapore or Solo and so on. And next one is Introduction to Building Architecture. So this is the course in the first year of the program. Not only about plans, we also studied the basic science of building architecture in theory, such as studying building facades, building circulation, and the development of ancient to modern building styles, which also related to the landscape architecture history. So next one is I'm going to talk about what are the stages that Trisakti landscape architecture student does or do in designing a site. First one is preparation, second inventory, third is analysis, and the final one is concept and design. So during the first stage, which is preparation, we conduct a research for the secondary data on the internet or to determine the location for the survey. And then we also have to know what types of data we would like to use or analyze. After preparing it, we also have to prepare for the tools for surveys and all kinds of tools that are used to take the primary data, such as cameras, drones, and other tools. And next one is inventory. At this stage, we collect all the data that is in the field, such as the type of vegetation, the width of the road or the circulation, how is the circulation and the accessibility, and what are the users, such as elderly or children, and so on, and how is the condition of the existing facilities, and many more. And the third one is analysis. After doing the data inventory, we can analyze the data they have collected, and then in that analysis, we determine the potential and the problems at the site. Types of analysis that we usually do, such as facilities and user analysis, climate and vegetation analysis, topographic analysis, drainage, or hydrologies, and others. All of that must be related to each other, and without the analysis part, we cannot continue the process. And then the fourth one and the final one is concept and design. So after we do all of those three things before, we can create a concept to solve the problem based on the analysis that we just did. And then we work on the form of the concept of space, the function of the space, the circulation, how is the vegetation concept, and then the utilities and others. And at this stage, there will be also a space requirement program, which is a table or tabulation will explain all the requirements according to standards to determine how many the capacity will hold. And at this stage, also after the concept, we will also make the schematics, the site plan, planting plan, and the detailed engineering drawing. Okay, so problem and challenges in designing, especially in Trisakti University as landscape architects. The first one is literature. So here in our university, sometimes there isn't much literature that explain about or related to landscape architecture in Bahasa. Mainly, we use the literature in English or in other language, which is some of us find it difficult to do. And the second one is idea. Well, this is a common problem for all of the people that are majoring in architecture and landscape architecture, because sometimes we run out of ideas, and sometimes we spend too much time thinking and deciding the ideas, and then it kind of wastes the time. So the solution we take in looking for ideas, we usually we look for references in internet or in Pinterest mainly, or in Instagram, and other references as well. And the third one is determination. Determination is also one of the obstacles for students, because we as a student have been in the situation where we get distracted by the little things such as a notification in your phone when we're doing a task or assignment, and then you look at your phone, and the next thing you know, you already wasted 2 hours. So yeah, it is one of the main challenges we face, especially in this 2 years of pandemic, because we study through looking our screens, whether it is laptop screens, phone screens, computer screens, but we don't feel the presence of whether it is the teachers or the colleague, the students colleagues. So it is very difficult for us. And this is a meme that I took from 9gag a few years back. So it is kind of funny for me because I can relate to some of it. Let me take a look. First of all, what my friends think I design, yeah, and then what my mom thinks I design, and what my teachers think I design. I can relate to this and this. And the next one, what society thinks I'm like, what I think I'll be in the future, what I really am. I can relate to this, and then what my desk should look like, what it really looks like, and what I'm trying to do is to stay wake up, like this Master Bean right here. So yeah, it is kind of funny to me because I can relate to most of them. Next one. So we will talk about landscape architecture contribution for the country. So the role of landscape architecture for the country I can say it is very important, because nowadays in these modern times, buildings is one of the main attention to big cities or modern cities, without paying attention to the ecological consideration sometimes. So, and this causes the greenhouse effect, which is currently increasing as I'm speaking right now. So the first thing we do in Indonesia is environmental balancing. So in this, we as a landscape architect should be an environmental balancer. We also need to discuss what are the impacts on the environment is, and the need for the reforestation in every building or residential area, such as regulation owned by Indonesia, which from the total citywide, the green open space must be 30% of the whole citywide. And next one is nature conservation. In addition to the discussing an urban area, we also play a huge role in preserving the habitats of flora and fauna that exist in nature of Indonesia. Because the term landscape is a huge landscape, and flora and fauna is the part of that landscape as well. And we must protect and preserve it together. And as an environmental action movement, we students of the landscape architecture takes environmental action every year by planting mangrove trees in Jakarta, mangrove, and in our annual event, which is called Hijau Jakartaku, or Green Our Jakarta. And then the next slide. So currently, we have a plan to move our current capital city from Jakarta to East Kalimantan. So from here, Jakarta, we will move the city capital to Kalimantan East, and the reason is pretty much there are many reasons to regarding the movement of the city capital, but one of it is because the transfer is carried out, the new design competition has been held, and one of the winner from the what do you call it, the design competition for this new capital is one of the alumni from the Trisakti University Landscape Architecture, and it is currently still in progress about the regulations on how you manage the space and other kinds of stuff. And this is one of the examples of a landscape project in Bandung, city of Bandung, West Java. So this is called Babakan Siliwangi Urban Forest. So this is originally a plain forest with historical aspects to it, because from the Dutch colonial, it is used as a camp, and now it is used as a urban forest, and people often visit this urban forest as the recreation time. And the next one, I would like to present my first studio project, which is a neighbor park. Compared to what Zoya present, it is a small scale, so there isn't much consideration into designing this neighborhood park. So the first one I did was I invent some of the data, such as the existing site, the existing plans, how is the circulation from the existing site, and then how is the accessibility there. And next one is the analysis. So we mainly analyze based on the second data, or secondary data, such as climate, and we also analyze the user of the existing park, which consists of elderly, mostly elderly, and then children's mostly, and then the existing facility, and many else. And the next part is the concept and design phase. So this is just a rough sketch of what I did when I worked on this first studio project. It is the space that I will design, and then the entrance and such. And then the second one is how the circulation will take when the final project is done. Next one is the concept and design as well. This is the consideration of the design. For example, the light choice, and then the materials, and the facilities, and then the entrance and the vegetation concept. And then the next one is also the vegetation concept. And here is the final site plan of which I did. This is the detailed engineering of how plants are going to be planned. And then this is the 3D rendering of the project that I created. It's called Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which means unity in diversity in Indonesia. So this is the main entrance, And then this is other facilities. And as you can see, and that's all I can present to you. I hope this is a well enough presentation from me. I thank you for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Oh, Rehanda, your presentation looks very exciting. Rehanda, can you give me a tip or one or two tips on how you choose the types of plants that you use while you're designing on your studios?
Well, I usually take a look at the existing plants that are currently in the site, and I don't usually change the existing plants that are existing there. So I only choose the plant palette of my choice, such as wait, let me see. I usually use Terminalia catapa. Basically, it is one of the most common plant choices because it looks elegant, and yeah, it is common for even for architecture buildings to use the Terminalia catapa and others.
Okay, so maybe from the other participant will ask one or few questions from today's presentation by Zoya and Rehanda. And I believe everyone has some question to ask. So if you have any questions, you could turn on your microphone and ask, or maybe you can ask it through the chat column.
Hello, Nadira. Can I?
Oh yeah, yeah. First question maybe from Yafa.
Okay, thank you very much. Applause for you guys. That's really a great presentation. So maybe this question directly to Zoya. That's really interest material, and I want to ask, talking about regional planning, then we will talk about the dimension of time to see history. I once conducted research on a historical area in Indonesia, namely the Banten Lama area, where there is a history of royal kingdoms until the Dutch first came in the city to colonize Indonesia. And what I researched had a problem where religious tourism activities were higher than historical tourism activities. And at that time, I did research with the whole or historical urban landscape approach. My question is whether there have this problem where there is a tourism activity is dominant, and what is the identity of area over there. That's it.
Honestly, I will just a minute. I'm so sorry. What I understood from your question is that you're asking me that there are usually religious beliefs to a place associated, and there is history as well to it. So how to tackle both of the aspects together on the same place? Is that your question?
Yes, that's my question, and maybe I want to ask about the main identity of your project, like that. Identity of landscape, I mean.
All right. So the project that I showed you, it again like had a lot of religious beliefs. Like people were coming there if a baby is born, people are coming there for the blessings. There, if someone dies, people are coming in that water to take bath to remove all the sins. So you can't just restrict such activities all of a sudden, because then it will become like an uproar, and that is what happened. So I think in fact the government, as my site fall under the reserved forest area, that patch belonged to the government, but because of this association and because of people interfering with this piece of land, the government had just secluded this land. Okay, okay, this is yours, you do what you want here, and you can't just construct anything, but it's still government, but you get the rights to do whatever you want. So I think in such situations you have to give a let go, and just find an easy way out, so not disturb people's beliefs. That is.
Okay, thank you for your answer, and that's really, really great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yafa. If everyone here have some question, you could raise your hand or you can ask through the chat column.
Maybe can I ask again?
Oh yeah, sure, you can.
All right, all right. Thank you, thank you. Maybe this question is directly for Ais. I see the one of something interest that tadi apa is namanya yang di Bandung?
Urban Forest Babakan Siliwangi.
Urban Forest Babakan Siliwangi. Okay, that's great. So can you tell us about the history of that place? Because I think your place is kind of similar with my place that we will talk about Dutch in the Indonesia.
I see. So it's just a brief history about the site, about the Babakan Siliwangi. So when the Dutch colonial came to Indonesia, it is used for their farms, perkebunan in Indonesia, perkebunan. So, and then from many years, it is used as a green belt atau sabuk hijau in bahasa. Green belt, and mainly it is used for what do you call it? Kebun binatang. I don't know what the English say. So ini kan pertanyaan dari itu. Kebun binatang sih sebenarnya. Gitu. Kalau dari excuse me Zoya, I'm going to use Indonesia to answer Yafa. Jadi memang ini dari tahun 2000 berapa ini? 1950 itu memang saat masa penjajahan itu digunakan sebagai apa? Perkebunan aja sih buat pemerintahan Belanda. Terus makin ke sini makin rindang site-nya, ditanami pohon-pohonan dan semacamnya, seperti itu sih ya Pak.
Oke, thank you, makasih Ais, makasih banyak jawabannya, keren.
Thank you, Yava, for your questions. Maybe for the next questions, you can raise your hands or ask through the chat column. Yeah, okay, there's Gaitza from HMJL.
Thank you, the moderator. First of all, I want to thank both of you for your wonderful presentations. My name is Tata from Landscape Architecture of Universitas Trisakti, and I'd like to ask you both how do you find ideas for your big task projects? Maybe like the one that Zoya is the one that in Bhopal. Yeah, maybe how do you find your ideas for your project?
You can go first, maybe, Zoya.
Yeah. I think once you analyze what is the issue or what is the problem for the project that you showed, IS, if I'm not taking the name wrong, like my first semester project, like my very first project was the same, to design a play area or a playground in our college itself. So with that, for that kind of a project, when we were working on, we looked at so many different things. It depends on the project, and once you go into it and you start researching, like for the playground area, for the design of the playground, instead of taking up physical equipments like slides and all, we decided with the concept of working with earth forms. Instead of giving the children just going on the swing to and fro every day, we could design the earth form in a way, the mounds in such a way that the children are coming and they can decide their own play. So for their more stimulation of brain, for them to interact more, learn more. So I think all these concepts and all these design ideas will come to you once you go sit and analyze what the problem is and what kind of solution are you looking for. So nowadays, there's so many things available on net. Net is like the biggest library you can find, and you get so many examples and case studies, and you just find which is relevant to your site and your area and go forward with that.
Okay. So my solution for finding ideas for the design is mainly from the analysis that we just did. So when we know what considerations are there to about the plan types or the facilities or the what do you call it, spaces that you want to create visually, when you know those things, I usually look for references in, whether it is in Pinterest or Instagram pages, about how will the form will took, and then what are the, mainly it is about the forms of the site itself, but the function of the design, mainly I took it from the hasil analysis, the analysis project gitu. Mungkin gitu sih, Tak.
Thank you so much for your answers.
Okay, thank you, Tata, for the questions. Maybe we can next to the next questions. Yeah, maybe while we are waiting for the next question, I'll have some question for you, Zoya. While you're designing or on your project, what kind of plants do you use in your design?
Planting palette, as I said, along the wastewater that was coming from the filtration pump, plant species with remediation qualities can be used. But for that, like I didn't get into much of a detailing aspect for this project. But if I would have done that, then I think the water quality would have been tested first. Whatever, if the TDS, fluoride, whatever is high or low, then plant species that remediate the water or clean it up, like floating wetlands. These are all just some examples that can be incorporated. So yeah, so that kind of a palette would have been decided, but I didn't get into so much detail for this project.
All right, I see. I have another question. So is there any certain type of plants that you usually use while you are designing a park or something?
Yeah, like we can use, like there are no specific plants that are used for one particular place, but depending on, again, I would say the design and analyzing the area and what kind of soil condition is there, what plants will grow there, then the planting palette is decided. If you're talking about parks or I can just give an example of a memorial garden that was designed recently. So, because the anniversary of that memory happens in December, so most of the flowering trees were given that bloom in winter season. So that was like a homage to that area. So these kind of concepts behind designs can be incorporated also, depending, and the planting palette will totally depend on the condition and the climatic conditions and soil conditions.
Thank you for your answer. Maybe from the participant, if you have some question to Ais or Zoya, you can raise your hands or ask through the chat column.
I would like to ask to Zoya. From what I saw from the project you presented, the Sacred Groves project take full consideration on cultural aspects, which consists of natural aspects as well, and it is pretty far from the civilization from what I saw from the map. So my question is, what are the obstacles of doing a project that is mainly focused on cultural aspect that we do not face in a modern civilization?
There are very different issues. Like this project was done under when I was in college itself. So in my studio, there were 15 of us, and 15 of us had different 15 sites for sacred groves around our homes or places that we could find. Mine was in a very rural setting, where, as you said, that the settlements were very far away. So I had very different issues with the site that I mentioned. My classmates that selected this site that were in the core urban city, they faced issues of water contamination. Like sanitation was a big problem that they faced, noise pollution was something that they faced, then encroachment was one of the biggest issues that they faced, like all the rehabilitation colonies or the urbanization was just taking up the land for sacred groves. So these were their issues that they were facing. So yeah, these were the main issues, I guess, that they faced. And the tourist influx, because my site was a very secluded site and it had still a less number of tourists coming. Most of the sacred sites have like a lot of people coming, and once there's so much of footfall, how do you conserve that area? That becomes a big issue, because you can't give the area, you can't restrict the area, you can't let it naturally revive itself. So how do you incorporate the humans as well as let the nature grow itself? So these were the issues that they faced mainly in the urban scenarios.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ais. There's a question in chat columns from Sharul Deta. My name is Shahrul from Landscape Architecture of Universitas Trisakti. I want to ask something. Why are you interested in landscape architecture? Yeah, maybe please, Zoya, you can answer first.
I actually became interested in landscape architecture by an accident, to be honest. I was working on a project that needed a green building certification, and while working on that, I came across a lot of techniques that like native planting, like passive cooling, and all these techniques. And then it just made me realize that why aren't we doing this in normal residential houses that we're designing? And once I went deeper into it, I realized that this is so much related to landscape architecture, and that is how I developed interest in it. And I thought, like, why not pursue it and learn more about it?
Wow. So it's by an accident.
Yeah.
Okay, how about you guys?
Yeah, it is that much different from Zoya. I study in landscape architect by accident as well, so it is not much different. Mainly, I interested about the so my ambitions from the senior high school was to create a place where people can socialize, communities can socialize. So, and from my childhood, I like to visit a lot of parks in Bandung and in Jakarta mostly. So yeah, I think that is one of the main reason I am studying landscape architecture. But mainly, I studied landscape architecture in Trisakti University by accident. Yeah.
So both of you are by an accident joining landscape architecture, right?
Mm.
So yeah, are there any more questions to ask to Ais or Zoya? Oh yeah, from Farida Fitriani.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Farida Fitrani Aribowo, and I'm a student of landscape architecture from Universitas Trisakti. And I have a question for both of you. What should we consider before actually starting a project? Since I'm still considered a freshman and I just started my second semester not too long ago, I'm still also learning about landscape architecture itself. And also, do you have any tips on how to pick the right site to do a project on?
You can answer first, Zoya.
The first question was how to start a project. Like, that was your first question. I'm sorry, I couldn't get your second question, what you asked. If you could...
My first question was, what should we consider before starting a project?
All right, okay. I think before starting any project, like whatever the project is, whether it's a park, plaza, you're doing a regenerative landscape or a brownscape, whatever it is, just go and look at examples, case studies, I would say. Okay, what all examples have already been done. So you'll get an idea of what you are getting yourself into. Look at the solutions they have done. Maybe your site will have different problems, the solutions will be different, but you can at least adopt the approach or the methodology that they have used. So just look at case studies as much as you can, read papers about the topic that you're going for. And yeah, before starting with any project, you should consider all these things.
Yes, thank you for your answer, Zoya.
Okay. So the first question is about what should we consider before we study a project. So for my answer is you have to recognize the site you are about to do or analyze in all different kind of aspects. For example, the cultural aspects, the social aspects, and mainly the ecological aspects to it. And you have to know your site boundaries, atau in Indonesia batas tapaknya berapa, seperti itu. And the second question is, can you repeat the second question?
Yes, the second question was, do you have any tips on how to pick a site for doing a project?
Tips on picking a site to do a project. Well, maybe you have to know or you have to recognize the site you are about to do. Maybe for example, when you are about to do your first studio 1 misalkan, you have to do a lot of research regarding the project or the site you are about to take, and then you have to ask around within that site, misalkan neighborhood park atau taman lingkungan, tanya-tanya warga sekitar, kayak gitu sih. Ya, gitu Farida.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Farida, for your questions. And so, Farida, questions is the closing question for today Q&A session. We will end the Q&A session. So, thank you so much for everyone's attention. Danyafat, Zoya, and terima kasih, Ais. For the next session, we'll be returned to MC Faldi. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Nadira. So now it's 10 minutes until the end of Kenalan. On behalf of Landscape Architecture Student Association of Universitas Trisakti, I would like to say thank you and huge appreciation to Zoya Matin and Rehanda Hanifaridza Harlisana for sharing with us the precious experience and knowledge. Also, we are very grateful for the attendance of School of Planning and Architecture Bhopal to attend the Kenalan event. Is a token of our appreciation for Zoya, Ais, and also Nadira as moderator for the valuable contribution on today's Kenalan. We would like to present a certificate of appreciation. The photo session will be guided by the crew. For the crew, please take the documentation. Time is yours.
Yeah, for the crew, maybe can you guys show the certificate, please? All right. Maybe kepada Pak Eko, apakah ada Pak Eko? All right. Maybe the certificate will be presented by Lola.
Thank you so much, Zoya, for being a special speaker at the Kenalan event. And here is a certificate from HMJL for you.
Thank you so much for inviting me and contacting me. It was a pleasure to come and talk about the work that I've done. And I hope to be in touch with all of you later on also and see your work as well. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, maybe next certificate. Okay, Lola, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Raihanda, for being a speaker, and this is a certificate from HMJL for you.
Thank you very much, friends. Terima kasih, sekian mungkin.
Okay, thank you, Ais. All right, next. Okay, thank you very much for Nadira Nur Sadrina, the beautiful moderator today. Thank you so much for your contribution, and thank you so much for participate. And this is for you.
Yeah, thank you so much all. And thank you so much for Zoya for being the speaker for today's kenalan.
Thank you so much again for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
Okay, Pauli, silakan.
Thank you, Bang Yafa. Before we enter the last photo session, we from Student Association of Department of Landscape Architecture at Universitas Trisakti would like to inform that we will holding an annual event, Hijau Jakartaku. As you can see at the share screen. In the event, there are various series of events like student design competition, poster competition, national seminar, and others. For further information, please contact us via our Instagram at hmjal_trisakti and at Hijau Jakartaku. And now we are entering today's last session. Please turn on your cameras and smile because we are entering the photo session. Will be guided by the crew.
Okay, I will take the first slide. In 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, lastly, I will take a second slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zoya, Ais.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our closing of today's kenalan, we would like to say thank you, and we are very grateful for your will to attend today's kenalan. I hope to see you guys soon, and I wish you all good health. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you, Zoya.
Thank you, Zoya.
Very much, Zoya.
Thank you very much.
Dhanyavad, Zoya.
Thank you, Zoya.
Thank you, Zoya.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semua.
Terima